like without a date, I guess. Let's see. I'm on the iPhone using a hotspot to see if anybody pops into this. Yeah, the other one is not coming back. Do not know. Whatever that problem was earlier is continuing. And of course, I don't know if anybody's going to look for me. I need to maybe end this one. Maybe that'll kick people out of it. I don't know. It's not showing me anything. Oh, is this even in Legends? It should be. There's Glenn. Okay, welcome back. And I'm not back. I'm just went somewhere else. Okay. I don't even know if I should exit this other one. I'm going to exit the other one. Yeah, I want to exit that one because it's not coming back. Well, it's not back up and running. It just went somewhere else. I'm like in an alternative universe. Yeah, for whatever happened, I had Wi-Fi on my phone. I got a hotspot to get myself back on, but it's computer shows Wi-Fi. Everything else is working, and this isn't. So this weekend we will be doing a dummy run with Trevor to figure out what this problem is. There's an internal problem, obviously. Something. Now it's going to be really hard for me to read this stuff because everything just got so small on this screen. But we will try. Well, we got, I think, most everybody back. So, yeah, it's the problem with technology. And I know Larry was having trouble talking about stuff earlier today. It seems like so much fun and so convenient, but it's just so hit and miss. It can work so well for weeks and weeks and everything's fine. And you're thinking, I got this, and then it just, and like I said today, the intro, the black screen, some other stuff disappeared. It was just having problems. And yet, other things aren't. Hey, and so I see Lacey's there again, Ed, Steve, Major Cavendish, Kent. We'll see Larry and David and Glenn. So, kind of an awkward start. We'll see how well this works, but we'll be able to go outside and look at the sky. Yeah, we don't have to sit in here because it's not as cool in here doing it this way because the camera, I don't know what it is, but it's such a better camera thing. It's, well, there's a glare in here now, so it's the dog's fault. The dog came in. Anyways, new book I just picked up. Everything's going to be backwards. It says The Lost Dutchman Bibliography. It's by Doug Stewart. He has a website, which if you look up Lost Dutchman Bibliography, he has everything on there. But he has a book. And he created a book so you can keep track of all the books. And I picked that up. Doug's a really good guy. Does a great service for everybody into the Lost Dutchman mind, the superstitions. It's all the core works, all the related works, all the fiction, nonfiction, and other things, and books of poems and everything. So it's a pretty incredible thing. I don't know why I keep looking up at the screen where there's nobody at. Let's see. Okay, so we're rolling. I'm gonna I can go smoke today. Wow, when you do this angle, my hat looks really small, my head looks really fat. So there we go. So we'll go this way, the tour. But we had a rainy day. So it was a rainy, nice, pleasant day. And it's really nice out. So East Valley looks like they're still getting some rain, some weather, but it's really nice here. So some of the file cabinets, I know everybody doesn't even get to see the file cabinets. Here's one of the file cabinets. There's more all over the place. They're everywhere. So, and there's another file cabinet here, and more over there, and more boxes there. So a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. And these file cabinets are filled with files. Would not make sense if they weren't, would it? But yeah, they're all filled up with files. Colorado. This Colorado file case. 2 different collections in there for the file cabinets. So, but there you go. So that's where all these stories come from. So there's 6 of them scattered out in here. Want to get them better organized so I can go through them, because they're kind of not against one wall altogether. I want to get them all together. And then there's another 6, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 boxes of material. And that's not to mention the stuff that's on hard drives inside, and all the library, all the books and stuff that are inside. So there you go. So that's those collections, the Branson collection, and the Penfield collections. So there you go. Yeah, you can see the sky cleared up out here. So it's nice and clear above me now. It's blue skies. Larry texted us after the live with what's going on. Yeah, I don't think the weather had anything to do with it. I don't know what it is. Last week we had that problem. And then this week, like I said, I went to sign in. And as soon as I signed in, it dropped the intro and everything. And I was doing some stuff and I was like, I didn't understand. And now, and then while we were doing it, the bottom dropped out. And then it was not coming back. It said it disconnected, but then I checked the computer and made sure everything else connected. And then so I don't know. There's a point where you just, I don't know. So, but yeah, we got a good heavy rain. There's a lot of standing water, a lot of mud. So, and it's breezy now, but this whole weekend's going to be full of that. So the one nice thing about Arizona is we don't really get earthquakes. You can feel them from other places occasionally, but we don't get earthquakes. But we also don't get tornadoes. So it used to flood, but now the storm sewers and the drainage systems in town, we used to get floods where just the water had no place to go because of the red clay in the ground. But now with the storm sewer systems and the canals and everything, last 20, 25 years, we don't have the rainstorms that we once had. That we used to have them where Phoenix literally came to a standstill. The freeways would all be under 3-4 feet of water, and you couldn't really drive anywhere. The roads just were like little rivers, and the East Valley sometimes just was submerged, and that was back in the 70s, maybe early 80s, and then that's all changed, because even if we get the really heavy rains, within 10-15 minutes of the rain being done, the water's gone. So much better. We have much better drainage in the valley now. So, and like I said, it's really nice out now. Most people would say, oh, it's kind of a warm day, it's 80 degrees and it's 60-70% humidity. This is beautiful right now, because that's what it is. And it's super nice because it hasn't been it's cooler right now than it generally would get at night. So with the cloud cover and the breeze and stuff, this is really super nice. So, and earlier it did get down to 78, 77, 78. So I had to come out and stand in some raindrops in it, because I was like, man, it's been a while, been a few minutes. So it's kind of nice. Well, yeah, but if I turn the camera the other way, you'll see it's black going east. So you're looking at the blue sky to the west. So it's, for some reason, these storms seem to be moving north and moving west, and then they turned and they came up a different route. So now it seems to be in the east. So I can look, and everywhere what you're hearing is the training jets from Luke Air Force Base above me right now. So that is another problem we will have occasionally, because these guys fly pretty low out here for maneuvers. But yeah, it's pretty dark south of us, probably all Phoenix, but probably down Avondale, Goodyear, it's still pretty dark. And then everywhere up north, Carefree, Cave Creek. One nice thing about living out west
is when you look at the sky, you can see quite a ways. You can judge, once you know the area, judge the distance. So like early in the mornings, you can see the, you know, storms of lightning out in the New Mexico border. You can see the lightning in the sky from that far. So there's not much, even with the mountains and stuff, there's not the obstruction for whatever reason. If White Sands sends missiles out, you can see them, but it's really cool. And it's, you know, it's such a big state, it just kind of throws everything off. But it is nice because you can look out and kind of see where things are going and see what things are happening. So, but there you go. Oh, Robert was gone. Did Robert have a problem? It just added a 49 seconds short because the phone jiggled in my hand. Oh, some days I'll have to get rid of that. Marie's sipping wine. Someone says grab a Coors. They're Coors Lights, and I think they're all warm because I think they're in. I don't think there's any in the fridge. So, is Doug's book back available on Amazon? Yes, I got a copy. I just ordered one, Doug Stewart's book. I'm thinking it was Monday or Tuesday, and I just got it yesterday. So the one nice thing is when I see a book or something, and I should have got it when he first put it out, and because I use the website so much, but because I use the website so much and he still updates and works with it, I didn't think much of it, and then I realized I really should get a copy of the book. So, but it's a really handy book, a really good book to have, because it does allow you to kind of look through the books. It doesn't have the detailed information the website does, but it does give you the authors and the titles of the books and the years they were presented. Not all the editions, like first, second, third, and fourth, how many editions came out, but it is a good reference too, and I'm going to be highlighting in that all the books that I've picked up so I can keep track. Because that's always a thing too, is I'll look and I'll say, do I need a copy of that? Yeah, I don't remember that. So then I'll order it, and then I'll go put it on the bookshelf, and then later I'll look and go like, why do I got 3? There was one for Tortilla Flat, and I thought I didn't have it, and then I ended up ordering one, and then I found out I'd already had 2 copies. So I now have 3 copies. So that happens a lot. So, it's a lake on Miller and McDowell. East Valley has a lot more problems than the West. And for some reason, the West Valley figured it out and was able to drain. So, much better out here than it used to be. The other big problem with this is having to make sure I hold the phone the whole time. The upside, I get to smoke. But no, this week's been kind of cool. I talked to Frank briefly a couple times. I think he's entered grumpy old man age, because it's hard to keep him on the phone, and then he's always complaining about stuff. Don't know why. I have to call him back tonight because I was trying to find out why he was upset with something. I didn't quite understand what the problem was. It wasn't with me, it was with something else, and I didn't understand it. But I talked to Woody earlier this week, and I talked to Shoes, and I talked to Ron Feldman, and I talked to Greg Davis. Did I talk to anybody else? Talked to a few other people, but yeah, I did some talking, so, and got a few calls in on some stuff. Some of it related to the Rendezvous. There's that guy I'm trying to get a hold of, I'm trying to pull in some more guest speakers, some variety, some first timers, so that's another thing. So I'm trying to really kind of pull that together, because that's the kind of the tough thing is there's people want to talk, and then once it gets to the Rendezvous, they don't want to talk, or they don't know, it's like, so we limited it. It used to be the guest speakers would come out, and I'm sorry, I'm friends with Thomas Glover and Jack Sanfelice, but 2 hours is too much of them droning on. It just kills people. And Tom Collenborn was the one that said, make sure they start talking like 15-20 minutes per person's good enough. He says they're just killing us. It's too much for one person, and I get it. Jack's frantic, the energy he would throw. He has this like just bang, 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 bang energy. And then the other side of it would be Thomas, who had a very slow lecture type pace, could put you to sleep sometimes. So I understood what Tom said, and it's gone pretty well. The problem is getting 5-6 people and having a program through all that, and people get kind of hesitant to do it. But we've had some good ones. When we broke it up, we used to have the one main guest speaker. First one we ever had was the Arizona Rangers Apache Junction Deployment Group. We had them come in and they talked. Greg Davis talked about the museum, or the Dawns, one of the two. It might have been about the Dawns. And then we had Jack Sanfelice as our first guest speaker. That was for probably the third rendezvous. So that was the first time we tried that. 2 shorter speakers, 1 long one. Jack always took plenty of time. And then it kind of moved on from there. One year we just had Clay Wurst. Clay spoke pretty much for a couple hours. That was a real pleasure. And we had the Saturday night. I think the third year, the Saturday night, Bob Corbin spoke for quite some length of time. Most of what he talked about was the Crazy Jake trial and Robert Simpson Jacobs and that kind of stuff. So that was how that worked, but then it navigated into where we'd have an opening, we'd have a couple things, then we'd do that, and then Tom complained, I think, of it as like, they're just talking too much. And so we started breaking it down. One year we had 7 or 8 different people, because the guest speaker, Thomas Glover, who was supposed to come down and speak, decided not to leave the house and come down to speak, and let us know like an hour before we were doing dinner. And then we got the message he wasn't coming, and I talked to him. He said, yeah, I haven't left the house. And I'm like, oh, great. So then I just ran around the camp and pulled people. Terry Carter spoke that year. He was one of the guest speakers. I talked that year. Terry Carter did. Then the infamous dime that Bob Schuess, yes, it's live. If it's not live, could I do this? No. There you go. Here Bob Schuess spoke, and that was one of my favorites. I told him, I want you to do the story about, Hank DeAndrea and Ernie Saviano and those guys from Chicago, when they got that map they found in the back of the Bible. Can you talk about that, them coming out and you guys going out? And they started searching, and they ended up hooking with Barry Storm and all that. Could you talk about that? And I was like, yeah. So I figured he's going to be 15, 20 minutes at least, maybe a half hour, telling the story about the guys coming out from Chicago. And that's how he met Barry Storm. And he ended up and Ed, I can't remember the guy's last name. Ed something was involved in that too. Anyways, so I introduced Bob, hand him the microphone. I walk outside the big Ramada, because we were doing it in the big Ramada. I lit a cigarette, took 2 puffs. Randy walked up to me and said, Schuess is done. And I said, what? And he said, Schuess is done. And I said, what do you mean he's done? And he said, yeah, Bob's done. And I was like, I walked in and looked, and Schuess just shrugged at me. And so then Rick Gwynn was talking that night, and somebody else, Robert Kesselring. So then it worked out, because they both took way longer. I think they even got in an argument about something. But anyways, so I asked Schuess later, and he said, I don't know, I just got up, told him, there were these guys in Chicago on this map in the back of a Bible. Wayne kind of, I think, explained most of it. It's about what happened. They came out here, but they didn't find anything. It's about all I got to say about that, and he sat down. So that was the time I realized, okay, I'm not going to get Schuess. Schuess has had a few. He might tell some stories, but he's not going to get up and be a guest speaker. So that's how that went. So it happens, different versions of that. Tom Collenborn did promise me he would talk at the Rendezvous. He said, I owe you at this point. He said, we're at like 18, 19, or 17. I don't remember what year it was, but he said, you know what? He said, I said I would never do it. I really wasn't interested, but I'll put something together, and next year at the Rendezvous I'll talk. And I said, can I hold you to that? And I said, I really hate to, but I said, will you do that? He said, yeah, Ron's talked, everybody's talked. And he said, I probably, Clay, he said, I probably should at least once. for appreciation for you guys, you know, and all this stuff. And I thought, thank you, Tom. And then, of course, you know, Tom, always the prankster, decided to die before he had to do it. So I don't know. Maybe he did the Jim Morrison, something like that. Maybe Tom is really out there with Michael Jackson and Elvis somewhere because he didn't want to talk at the rendezvous. But yeah, he did promise, and then that didn't happen. But I would have liked to hear, or at least had him kind of explain what he was going to talk, because I have no idea. He never explained that, what he would talk about. He just said, I'll do it. I'll give you a half hour. Is that good? And I said, yeah, that'd be, because I tried to get him a couple times. Said, if I can get you and Clay and Greg and a few people, would you guys do a panel where you talk about some of your trips or something? And he didn't want to do it. He said he just didn't want to get up in front of people and talk anymore. He wasn't interested in doing that. He didn't do lectures. He just wanted nothing to do with it. And then whatever it was, I think because the rendezvous, and it was after Joe Roboto passed. No, Joe Roboto was still alive. I think it was just out of the consideration of all we'd done, and that no one thought we'd last 10 years, and then we made it past. And I think Tom just looked at it as, you know what, I should kind of jump in there and do something. So yeah, there was a reason for it. So the Mormons in Cain. I don't understand that. Okay, well, anyways. So, but we've had all kinds of guest speakers. So get a couple of these other people. I think it'll be a really nice program. Plus, it's all day, some stuff going on. So we'll see how that goes. People can do their own thing, but then they've got something to do, something to listen to. And it allows me to kind of let these other things happen so I can kind of like back out. I know a couple times there wasn't, you know, especially if it's warmer and we're up in the big Ramada trying to stay out of the, you know, you end up with 2 or 3 groups and you end up having to host the whole time. And Joe Roboto was awesome at that. I will give Joe credit. Joe could sit in a chair under some shade and host all day. I like to get quiet once in a while and just chill out. So, and you don't get a break from it. There was a couple of them. I know I didn't, one year didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep Friday night. Well, that was me and Sal were up till like 3, 4 in the morning. I barely slept if I did sleep. And then I got up, went through all day Saturday, and then we sat up Saturday night, and I was on fumes, but I made it. And Sunday morning I got up and realized, man, I made it through the whole weekend. I didn't really sleep. And then afterwards I realized I don't remember a lot of what happened because it was so bang, 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 bang that I got through it. And I was like, I can't do it like that anymore. Not just because of any other reason of you're just not enjoying yourself. You almost need to go camping after you went camping to get away from it all. And yes, that is a tombstone behind me. So, and nobody's posting, so I don't know if the Wi-Fi is working because I can't. Now that I'm on my phone, I can't. Oh, there's the Wi-Fi, so it says it's working. So just say something once in a while, guys, so I know something's working still. Like I said, you can watch the big white clouds coming over me. But it's definitely, the breeze is picking up and the breeze is cool. It is. Okay, so there we are. What else do we have? Coming in good. Another one went out because of the breeze. I saw that before, the Henry story. Yeah, once in a while, you know, one of the hard things with the Chasing Legends, I always like to do some stories I've heard from other people, some things that have happened to me, and then touch other stories and keep it bouncing around a little. Of course, we're coming up at Halloween, and the next few will be interesting. We have murder, we have intrigue, we have some unusual things because we're getting close to October, and we'll do it, you know, kind of close into the rendezvous. But one of the things is like trying to decide what's a good story or not, because most of the time you can kind of tell the story in 2 or 3 minutes because it's just like an anecdote, and then you're sitting there and you're taking time and you're like, how do you flesh this out without, you know, doing what other people do, which is either you're just taking from someone else's book, or you're making stuff up. Oh, here's a good one. Abe Reed, what's his story? Well, he died in his camp. The camp out by Reed's Water, which was appropriately named after him, out kind of the southeast Superstitions, not far east, but south central kind of, east of the quarter circle U. Reed came out, prospected, worked the mountains. He'd been in prison before. He worked up more in the western Superstitions for a long time. He had a camp, and he worked up around Blacktop Mesa, and he had some prospects and stuff there. And then later he kind of set up a camp, probably in the 40s or 50s, out there where Reed's Water was. There's a windmill and stuff there, and there's a mine, and he worked that area for quite some time. Tom Collenborn's dad helped him build or clear the way for a road, and his dad and Tom used to go out there when Tom was a kid and visit with Reed, and he was found dead in his camp. The funny thing is, he always gets this thing, and definitely there's the conspiracy angle where Reed packing bodies and stuff like that, and that few people I met, you know, said Reed was a really nice guy. He had a, you know, hey Joshua, is in there that people mine for. I'll get to that in a second. But Reed was generally known as a really super nice guy and very friendly. Of course, this is when he's older, so who knows what he was like when he was younger. But, you know, the same goes for Jacob Waltz and stuff. They, you know, the stories of the murderous Jacob Waltz, the story of this guy, that guy. People are always made to be far different than probably who they were, what they were like. Most of these guys that spent a lot of time in the mountains were pretty nice, and if people earned their trust, which Tom earned the trust of a lot of people that lived back in the mountains, and he would always say they were really nice people. Some of them were a little crazy, he thought, a little touched from spending time back there, and you know, he wasn't quite clear on what they believed or why they were there, but he spent a lot of time with those guys. And you know, Tom's dad was a pretty level-headed guy, and he was taking his young son out there to help Abe. That doesn't sound like this awful person, but I think it's easy to take distance and then do conspiracy theories and stuff and put people's names in there, because we forget they're real people and they had real lives. And so I think that happens. And definitely with the people that didn't really have families, they didn't have a lot of family or anybody out here. A lot of things got twisted and turned around, and a lot of things were said about them. What is funny is one of the people that said a lot of things about a lot of people and kind of turned some of those tables was Ted Cox. Was one of those. I read some of the Cox stuff, and I was like, but I had a feeling, and I still do, is feel like he made up some history himself, kind of speculating, but he just kind of, you know, the thought process, well, this is what I think happened. So maybe it was more of that, but and I know his dad had been out there a bit and all, but yeah, Abe Reed, from anybody I'd ever met that had known him or ran across him, and I think he died, it was in the 50s or 60s, early 60s or late 50s. What other minerals besides gold is out there? Minerals other than gold, there's silver. There's supposed to be silver ledges and stuff, and definitely the eastern Superstition Mountains have a lot of silver in it out there. There's copper, obviously. It's because it was it's calderas and the mineralization. Anything that you would find south or north of there along that line, I would think you could find in somewhere in the mountains. Obviously, the other thing is mercury. But you're going to find a number of different elements. We had a geologist speak at the Dons. I've never been able, and I'm trying to find out what his name was. And he was friends with Tom Collenborn, and he came out to the Dons. First time we had a geologist that actually spent time in the Superstitions, and he talked about the United States geological reports and stuff, and he said it's absolutely just ridiculous that people say, oh, there's no gold in the Superstitions. He says there's gold in the Superstitions. He says, and he explained the reason it's so hard to find and certain aspects of it. And it was such a great talk because he showed us and explained things. And Frank and I were just like, this is amazing because it makes sense, everything he's talking about. And we talked to him for about an hour afterwards about a number of different areas and stuff. And he talked about areas that he thought were never explored properly. He said the geological reports are not only outdated, he said they were never completed. They just went to some easy picked mines and then just called it a day. So he said there's areas that were covered well, but he said there were areas that they just barely even looked at. And he said they'll never probably complete it because of the wilderness area and everything. They're just not going to do anything with it. So it's interesting, but I've heard of everybody. I haven't heard of anybody coming out with diamonds or anything or rubies, but who knows with the caldera and everything else happened there. Nothing, I guess, is, you know, Alaskan iron red ore. Okay, price of silver is moving up. Did you know Don Shade? No, I never met Don Shade. Nope, never met Don Shade. I know Ron was close to him. Ron knew him really well. He wrote that really good book that had some stuff. It had the had those Pearl Flicker, was that her name? Pearl Flicker letters and stuff on Herman and all. So, but Sal's $1 billion emerald. Yep, Sal has a $1 billion emerald deep in a place that nobody can ever get to. So, and I think it's lost to mankind and forever. That's a story, if I could ever get Bob Schuss to tell it, like the first time he ever told it to me, it took about 15-20 minutes, and it was very detailed. And if you heard that story, you would never go there or have any interest in it again, because Schuss, basically 10 of the 15 minutes Schuss is talking, he's on his belly crawling through stuff. And that place was ready to let loose, and they literally squoze their way for hours. I mean, like 5 or 6 hours through these tunnels and stuff till they got there. And Sal showed them it, and Schuss said, Sal says the emerald is on the backside of the rock that Schuss looked at. Schuss did not look at the backside where the emerald is. Schuss said there was no emerald that he saw. And then that place, someone else had the claim. I think Sal says he's waiting to get the claim, but I don't know how they can get in there because I think the one side collapsed. I don't know how they'd ever get in there. Sal wanted me and Randy to go. He was really into it, and Schuss, that's why Schuss told me the story. And he told me the story and said, you know, the next group that goes in there, he says, Sal doesn't even go in there. He says, next time somebody goes in there, somebody might not be coming out. So that was it. We watched your television show. Cool. So awesome. Why didn't you guys try to get into the booby trap mine? Well, the one that had the booby trap, there was nothing there. It was like a prospect. It just had a dead end. It was like they dug so far, and then that was it. There was nothing went any further. It was only, I don't know, maybe 6-8 feet. That was all the further it went. I think that got blown up. That's where Magnuson got scorpions all from, because we did it, we filmed it, and then we sat down, and I sat on the south side, and Magnuson and Frank and them were sitting on the north side across from me, and they were filming, and I looked down, and there was scorpions all over this rock. That was, we ran into a lot of rattlesnakes, but yeah, we ran into a lot of scorpions, and those guys would just sit down and not think about it and have scorpions like starting to crawl on them, and you'd have to tell them. Was it a real trap? That was what caught my eye. They just wanted us to check the prospect and do a sample off the prospect in that area. And what happened was I got in it, and the wire and everything, which was old, and then the deadfall, which had been covered up and stuff. I was like, someone set this up to kind of cause someone to take a header in here. I don't think the wire, I think, was to trip you, and then there was looked like there had been some sticks down it, like, you know, what do they call those things, and whatever the sticks are, but there was some sticks down in there, and it was a little trench dug. So I think it was meant to kind of like cause you to fall into it, but it was so old, it'd been there a long time. But I caught that, and that was live on camera because we were going in. They said, why don't you go in and check it out? And then I started going in and I said, no, stop, back up for a second. Because I was looking at it and going, does this wire go somewhere? What the hell are we doing? Because you never knew with Hollywood what they would do. They might do something to risk your life. They did a lot of stupid stuff. So I was stepping back to assess what I was looking at. And then I realized, well, someone did this on purpose. And I think it's cut, we obviously cut and stuff. And then I'm like, did you guys do this? No. And then I realized everything's very, very old. And that's what it was set like. But I don't know, because there was no other explanation for the wire, which was nailed into the rocks, spiked into the rocks, and set there. And the wire had been sharp. So I don't think it would have cut a head off, but it would have messed you up. So, and it was low. But I kind of went in ducking down, and Glenn Evans was behind me. And then I think we cut the wire, or was the wire cut? And then, of course, once you have something like that, then everybody's playing into it. But yeah, there was something to that. I've seen a couple. There's been a couple other places I found where you'd have 10, 15, 20 feet, and they would, the floor, they would dig, and what there would be is like, a spot in the floor where you could tell they had done something. They dug down, and it was a spot to trip you up or do something. So you always wanted to be careful in some of these old places, because you don't know. They would set things up, and I don't know if they were always to harm people or to let them know somebody had been messing around on their claim. Yeah, it's like punji sticks or Puji sticks or something like that. Do you think people are still following you in the mountains? Well, not right now. It was summertime and I didn't go out there much. Do people see me and follow me? Yeah, because I was on stupid freaking TV. Frank and I realized that after a while. One of the problems was, and then we got rid of the white truck, and then I got the blue truck, but then once people knew I was in the blue truck, then that also, they would distinctively catch me and Frank. We stick out. But, they would like slam their brakes and pull over, or they'd see us, But if I go in to the Superstition Wilderness, usually people don't have a clue who I am. Now, once in a while, someone will say, what are you doing back in here? Like, kind of, that you would think that'd be the one place you'd expect to see me. But in some other areas, people are kind of surprised to see me, or they have no clue I'm there. So I don't get recognized back deeper in the mountains. People just kind of nod and go by. I don't think it catches, they don't think about it as much. But I went to Fremont Saddle one day, and everybody at Fremont Saddle kept looking at me weird, and they just couldn't figure out why I was at Fremont Saddle, which was Trevor was filming B-roll for Sunsets of Weaver's Needle. And since we were filming, he was going up to film. I helped him bring the equipment up, and we sat up there and spent the afternoon up there. So, but yeah, it's just, people will kind of, if they don't follow you, they notice you, and then they try to see what you're doing. And Frank ran into it a few times, him and Woody did. And I've run into it. A couple other people have run into it when they've been back in the mountains, and one of these old guys, would start poking around to see what they're doing and stuff. A couple times with the vehicles has been weird, because the vehicles will follow us. We'll just decide, okay, a couple other people showed up. Let's go down here and go check shit out. Then we go down somewhere else and park, and then we suddenly realize the vehicles are there when we come back out, which means the people came down, parked where we were, went to see what we were doing. Then we had the guy that was watching us from that hill, which we caught him on film. We don't know what he was doing. Then he ended up sitting in a truck up a hill somewhere else and watching down and watching us. That's when Trevor messed up his ankle. So, which kind of like, we weren't thinking about it much. We were just trying to get Trevor back to the truck at the time. But then afterwards I realized, yeah, that guy was checking us out. Then it weirded out because there was a guy with a drone who knew who we were, and he was flying the drone over us. Then he tried to become our friend because he also realized that other guy was there. So then he became not so much the stalker, but, oh, well, I'm the lesser stalker. And, hey, how you guys doing? which was funny because like, okay, he was watching us, but you were watching us too. Everybody was, but that's what happens more than anything is they catch the truck or something and they realize we're in the area, and then they try to figure out where we're at and see what we're up to. And that does happen, and it's kind of like, I don't mind talking to people and stuff, but it's just kind of weird when you're kind of doing something and you can tell the people are just kind of trying to figure out what are you doing there. They're looking around and looking at stuff, and it's like, yeah, there's 42 gold bars in the back of my truck, by the way. So yeah, but it does happen. You lose, because of the TV show, you lose that ability just to blend in and disappear, just be in the mountains. So they think you know the secret spot. Everybody wants to know what you're up to because of your knowledge base, I think, which they don't understand. I hate to tell people this, but there's so many times you go in the mountains and, I might say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to Blacktop today. And I start heading that direction. Then I go, you know what? I'm going to go down to, I'm going to go to the Three Red Hills. And so my plan changes, and I'm just walking and enjoying myself, because sometimes it's like, I wonder if something's there, or I just want to go, like, hang out. I just want to, the weather's great. I'm just feeling it, and I just want to enjoy myself. So I'm taking pictures, I'm looking around, and sometimes I discover new things, and people don't realize I'm just enjoying myself. I'm not going anywhere, doing anything for any real purpose. So, and they will get interested because you're like, well, what's he doing? He's stopping, he's looking around, he's taking some photos. What's he doing? And if I see neat rocks or something, I'm going to dig around and try to see what I'm looking at. And Battleship Mountain, Battleship's nice. I don't know. I like going down through that area. I like going back to Boulder Canyon through there and all that. And heading over to Geronimo's Head from First Water. That's a nice trip. It's kind of more of a downhill trip till you go to leave. From my experience, treasure hunting can be a risky business. It can be risky if you let it be. It's like I've told a couple of the tales of being in the mountains, and people hunt in the mountains, and because you're off trail and deeper in the mountains, you should carry a firearm because of the wildlife, and also because of the two-legged variety, which you never know what's going to turn up, or people can be weird and what's going on. I've run into plenty of weird people back in there. Nothing super threatening, but because of that, people will be like, well, why do you carry a gun in the mountains? Well, there are a lot of things out here, and they can be rabid. It just seems like a no-brainer that you have to explain. And it's like, I'm not shooting up all the cacti, and I'm not killing people and burying people out here. And they don't get it. And so I don't know. I think that one of the problems is most people, I would say, most of the people that just hike out there are sticking to the trail, going to certain designated spots that a lot of other people do, and they don't really run into too many problems. They run into the same thing. And like I said, if you're going up Fremont Saddle, or if you're going down to Barkley or Brush Corral Basin, or you're going up through Garden Valley to Second Water, you're going to run into quite a few people. But you're going to run into people that are taking those trails because they're the most popular ways. But if you're dipping down in Needle Canyon or LaBarge Canyon, or if you're back in Fish Creek Canyon and through Lost Dutch, or you're down in south of Tortilla, you get into those areas, when you see people, it's a little more rare. You're not running into as many people, and they're back there for certain purposes. And because of that, it's kind of like different. You run in and you're just you're measuring each other a little more. So, because you're not sure what someone's doing, the reason why or purpose. And are they just prospecting? Are they just camping? Are they just hiking? Sometimes they'll ask you questions. We've run into guys coming out of places, and probably innocent enough, they were just back in there camping for a couple days, and they're just a solo hiker. But then Frank and I will kind of like turn and we'll watch and make sure they're leaving, and we watch them leave out. And one of us might even not follow them, but walk back and kind of watch around the corner to make sure they're leaving the area, because you're not sure about people's intentions. they come up, and we've had a couple of them that just been awkward. And I think it was awkward for them because they were like, well, who are these 3-4 guys that we just, you know, the one time that guy just walks right into us and we're filming and it's Trevor, me, Frank, and Tyler. And I think the guy was just kind of like nervous. And I didn't think about it in that term because I've been back in there all the time. But then he's acting awkward and we're just trying to be friendly. And we had a nice conversation. But then when he left, we didn't just turn and go. When we cut, then I followed back down around to make sure he kind of was leaving the area, because it was that awkward conversation and I want to make sure that guy's leaving and we're not going to deal with that. Okay, so I'm going to try to catch up on these. Okay, yeah. Is there a map with all the place names? Yes, you can get, you know, I always say just get the USGS topographical maps. I got a whole pile of them over here, but I can't get to them right now. But just get them, you know, those are always good because you can mark on them and stuff. I always have 2 sets, a clean one and then some that I mark on. But I like them because they blow up the area to, what is it, about a square mile? What is it those do? I don't know what they do. I know they're the USGS maps. I guess we're gonna find out. I don't know. Department of Interior survey maps. 7.5 minutes. What are those 2? They're more than a square mile. I don't know. This one is LaBarge Black Mountain. What is this one? Weaver's Needle Quadrangle. But I get those maps because they kind of give you kind of that area. And then you can take pictures of them with your phone and then have them in your phone of the different areas you're going to be hiking in, something more specific. So I like those. The navigational tools and phones are good now too. So, okay, we did Battleship Mountain, lived in Mojave Desert, cool. I have a Hellcat. Is there a map with place names? Yeah, those have a lot of the place names because you'll have the older names on stuff. Not real old names, but they'll have a lot of the older names. And then if you get like Jack Carlson's hiking guide, you can put some of the newer names and places and trails on them. Get your crazy out. Definitely a no-brainer. Trying to catch up now. Cold Steel Tactical Axe. 2-legged like Tyrant. No, I haven't seen dinosaurs. Sal probably seen dinosaurs. Mysterious gunfire. People hunt back there. You always... People hunt. People don't target shoot because it's so rugged, but people go a lot of coyote varmint hunting back in there. So there you go. So it's just kind of part of what that is. People do go shooting out there, and you got to remember, anybody fires around, depending where you're at in the canyons in certain areas, it'll travel, so you can't tell unless you hear the ricochet or you hear the over your head. Live out west one day. It's nice open country. Never go without protection. The desert is thing that hasn't changed much, is about the only thing. Well, desert even changes. The water will change it. Local slang names. No. There's not many slang names. So, most of the slang names were the original names. So, there's like squaw, old squaw, and new squaw. But I think if you just look at squaw, you go to the next box canyon north of it and say, there's the other squaw. Pistol Canyon's kind of easy. If you get a hiking guide, you can figure most of them out. And I think Jack Carlson's hiking guide, if you just want to buy the original one, it has all those little names of those places and shows you where they're at. Which Pistol Canyon, I wonder if Pistol Canyon is listed as Pistol Canyon or not. I don't know. You're just so used to it and knowing them. I don't know if they all are or not. Desert is about the only thing that hasn't changed. Local slang names. Going scouting down south next week until above Safford. I lived along the edge of Joshua Tree. Near those Joshua trees everywhere. Cool. A lot of those down there in that area. But yeah, slang names are interesting. Sometimes they're on the map, sometimes they're not. But it's like the slang names now are what the names are. So it's like people talk the Wave Cave now, but that's Apache Kid Cave, and I knew it as the Apache Kid Cave, and there's books written about it, and it's called the Apache Kid Cave. But now it's just known as the Wave Cave because the new hiking people, just that's a big fun deal for them to do. There's different names for places, but it doesn't really matter. I guess to some degree I'm learning is just people don't care about the history, they just care about the stupid hike, and that's all it is. So unfortunately, yeah, history, and that's one of the reasons I still do what I do and some of the stuff. We're hoping to get out through this winter. Frank's always bugged me that we should, well, not he won't, but Trevor and I should get out and do some hikes and then show people, rather than the hikes that people show on the internet, do some where we talk about some of the stuff like we did Black Mesa like that, and bit stopped in some different areas, but do something like that. I think it's boring to watch someone just hiking, but maybe not. I never saw any snakes where I lived. Well, snakes can stay pretty much undercover. You can walk through an area full of snakes and not see one. Just because you don't see snakes doesn't mean they're not there. They're just well hidden, and you're not seeing them. Frank always liked the fact that I always seemed to pick them out for some reason, maybe because of my hunting experience and stuff, but I always catch snakes way before he does. I can point them out, and he will just keep looking and not see them. So it's just, to get a better idea of the layout. Annual rainfall was 1 inch per year where I live. That's not much at all. Will you do filming in the mountains this year? Probably. It just becomes a time thing. And you consider we got the Rendezvous, so we'll do the Rendezvous. We'll get out of the Rendezvous, and then you got Thanksgiving, and then we try to do things. Now, there'll be a different open schedule, because before in the past we just didn't have the free open schedule. I was always using a couple days, moving kids from up north and stuff and taking them back north, and so at times when everything was opened up a little, everything was kind of like days were taken off the schedule and stuff. This year will be for the first year in a long time that I should just be able to kind of just decide to do stuff. Enjoyed your Fish Creek trek. But yeah, I don't know if my neighbor's yelling at somebody or something. If violence ensues, I'll flip the camera. But yeah, I like going out and doing stuff. I do like going out into the mountains and filming and kind of hitting particular areas. The problem is, it's like photography. You get up in the mountains and you forget. So you just start doing your thing and checking shit out and having a great time, and then next thing you know is like, oh, we didn't really film any of that. I didn't even, I didn't take pictures. There was times I've been in the mountains or doing stuff, and I'm so busy and other things going on, I suddenly get home and I go, I took 4 pictures all day of, specific things I wanted to, in a moment, but that happens a lot, because you're just, I need greenery. There's lots of greenery in the mountains. The mountains can be very green. You just got to know where to go. There's a lot of oases out there. But yeah, the desert is as alive as any place is. It's just quieter if you know how to walk. Where in the woods and stuff, all the deadfall and the debris and stuff, you can't be as quiet. But the desert, just, think about it. Superstitions. You have mountain lions, and you have bobcats, and you have coyotes. I haven't seen any Mexican wolves and no jaguars yet, even though there had to be Mexican wolves and jaguars around that area at one time. There's been some black bears. There's mule deer. There's some coos deer to the south, I believe. There's the bighorn sheep. That's for the major, and the javelina, the peccaries. Then you have the You have obviously Gila monsters, however many variety of rattlesnakes, sidewinders, and other stuff that you got out there. So everything, and there's lots of birds. You know, you got the turkey vultures, and you got all the different hawks. The eagles are more going to stay up by the Salt River area. They like the waterways and the fish. But there's so much abundance of wildlife out there, and a lot of it's seeing you and you're not seeing it. Bad to the bone paranormal evening. Legend in the chat. Okay, bad to the bone and paranormal. Yeah, we're gonna do that ghost hunt thing, I guess, again at the Rendezvous. And loving your live new sub here. Cool. And you're bad to the bone paranormal. So there you go. Do you guys have sleep in the mountains? Sheep in the mountains. Yes, we have bighorn sheep. I don't know if they're normal sheep won't last. Best wishes from Atlanta. Peace be with you. Okay. Kind of strange. But, yeah, we'll probably do the ghost hunt thing again. I mean, the Don's Camp, they've had that camp established for over 70, 75 years. So you figure there's got to be something. And there's been cremations and burials there. And there's the crematory from the Hohokam nearby. And Mrs. Linesby's house cabin was right there on the north end. And there's just lots of stuff that's happened out there. So if you're into that sort of thing, there has to be a lot of that stuff. You know, it's, of course, nothing ever happens. But people like to, you know, kind of walk around and they go, ooh, I got to chill. It's called a downdraft. But yeah, the wildlife out there is cool because your chances of seeing wildlife out there are just, you know, I know for me it was a real thrill. I've only seen mountain lions briefly because they're really, there's a mountain lion in the area and he knows you're there. He's watching you and you don't know he's around, but you'll see their prints and stuff. But I got to see one cross up by Seven Springs, but when we were on the Salt River filming, I saw one going across the ridge line, and it took me a moment to realize what I was seeing. But he was walking the ridgeline probably because of the bighorn sheep, and it was the cooler, it wasn't cooler weather, but it was a kind of a cloudy day. And I think he was out and about, which normally they'd be out at night. And, you know, and think about it in the mountains, hearing those noises, because they do that whistle like a bird, and then they do the baby cries and all that stuff. And with the coyotes and all their different vocalizations, people think they hear things in the mountains and it's just the wildlife. And then you add in owls and screech owls and barn owls and different animals. It's you know, there's a lot. Deadfall hurricane has showed up here in the mountains. I would freak out. I don't know. People do, but just because they're not used to it or not, you know, the problem with most things is you don't wrap your head around it. You just don't sit there and go, well, what was that? That's interesting. And you don't let your brain process for a minute, which you generally would figure out. Instead, you go into, I don't know that normally, and you're already uneasy. And I've seen people around campfires that just start bugging out, and then it's just like, you have fun with them a bit, and then you realize, why are you bugging out, man? Nobody else is. It's you know, what do you think? It's just going to come in and eat you and leave the rest of us here? If there's a problem, you'll know, because we'll let you know. But you know, and then people get bit by things generally because they do stupid stuff. They put their hands in holes or do things, or they put their hands where they can't see, or they decide to pick up a Gila monster. Bad idea. They decide to play around and try to film up close a rattlesnake, which could leap the entire length of his body. So a 4 or 5 foot rattler could get you from 4 or 5 feet away. And it's funny because snakes panic because they just want you to stay that away. They want to get away. And the snake panics and you panic, and next thing you know is you got bit because the snake was just trying to get away and you were just trying to get away, and it just all kind of went. My daughter did that. We had a rattlesnake when we were heading to camp one year, and it was crossing in front of us, and I said, stop, wait a minute, let him kind of go across. And he slowed down, and you could tell he was kind of sensed he heard us and felt the vibration, so he was checking out before he moved forward. And my daughter panicked and ran right at it and jumped over it, and I was kicking dirt at it to kind of distract it. But yes, last time you ate rattlesnake, a long time ago. It's not good, and I don't it's not like something I would recommend to anybody, even as like, hey, you should eat rattlesnake to see what it's like. My neighbor's leaving right now. I don't know if he watches these, but yeah, he got bit by a rattlesnake. I think it bit him twice and messed him up. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend. There's a place, Papado's, off of the I-17 here in Phoenix, down by Peoria, that serves rattlesnake. They also serve alligator and stuff. Any brown or black bears, just black bears. No brown bears. We don't have any grizzlies here. They're brown, but they're black bears. Jersey Devil, there you go. We got the Mogollon Monster. Same for us here in Massachusetts. Everybody has their Jersey Devil. You in Illinois. You're in Illinois. Who's in Illinois? You're in Illinois. I was in Illinois when I was very little. I've been bit by black widows. Yeah, those can be, it hurts and you get sick. You can get sick, have a reaction to it. Same with scorpions. Kind of into the wildlife thing. We're going to wrap up here soon. But anything out there, you know, and anybody can have a reaction to something because you don't know. I mean, it's like people, I'm sure there's people that have went through an entire lifetime never having a bee sting, and they don't know if they'll go into shock for a bee sting because they've never been stung by a bee. And it's not probably a pleasant thing to happen for the first time. So I've been hit by scorpions, and I've been hit by black widows and different spiders and different things, and I've survived. But it's usually take something for it, put something, an ice pack or something cold on it. It just really, you usually carry on your trips. We talked about that. Yes, I usually carry. I definitely always carry, depending on some areas, I might just carry snake shot, but I always carry snake shot. Just if we get ourselves in a situation where we have a problem with one of our friends, the rattlesnakes. So, but yeah, it does happen occasionally. Well, you have 9 lives. I've stepped. A favorite story with rattlesnakes is I was barefoot. Do not know why. Down in Maricopa, and I, for some reason, decided to tell these other guys. I was a kid. About there was a bunch of coyotes down in the wash over this one spot, and I ran over that way, and I was barefoot running in the desert. I'm a kid, and I looked down when my foot went down because I was watching where I was running because I'm barefoot. And I stepped right on a coiled up young rattlesnake and scared the crap out of the snake and started yelling, "There's a snake!" And then everybody didn't believe me about the coyotes, and they didn't believe me about the snake till they saw the snake. And yeah, that was a pretty weird thing, like stepping on a water balloon. But I was probably 11 or 12, 10, 11 or 12 when I did that. But yeah, it was, I don't know, you know, today I would not wander around and run out there like that barefoot because of the scorpions and stickers and everything else. But when you're a kid, you're just stupid. Water moccasin, that would be rough. Damn, yeah. Funny, but not funny. Well, it wasn't funny to me, I mean, to be completely honest. I was in full screaming panic mode because I couldn't believe I didn't get bit. And I've had a lot of close calls with snakes. But then I think that's why I recognize them so much, because after the number of close calls, I just realized, okay, I need to have better eyes and watch what I'm doing. And so from then on, my dad was good. He could pick them off. He'd be driving 40 miles an hour down the side of a road, and he'd stop suddenly and get out. And there'd be a rattlesnake. And he did not like snakes. So around the property. So he'd always kill them because there was tons of pack rats, and so there was tons of snakes. So he was always trying to get rid of the snakes. So anytime he saw a snake, he didn't shoot them. He just took a shovel out, went over and chopped their head off, and then buried them. And that was his thing. And God, he killed a lot of rattlesnakes. I was not like that. I always realized they have a purpose and stuff, but he hated having them up by the line cabin we had and up in that area. So if he was driving by or driving around or doing something, he would see them and he would just pull over and kill them. So he tried at first. I remember early on he would try to shoot them and they would move and he couldn't hit them, and then he'd just get mad and take a hoe or a shovel. And then after that, I'd seen him kill copperheads. He would take them, and he told me, my grandpa told him how to kill them. He would spin them in the air, grab them by the tail, and then twirl them like a like a rope, and then he would just raise his arm back and snap, and they would snap their heads and stuff and all that. Funny how the old time stuff, how they would do stuff. But anyway, dogs are hungry for pizza. Well, dogs haven't been getting snacks this week, so they weren't on a diet. They just weren't snacks. Oop, I lost myself. Principally because the meals didn't merit it. So pizza night, they usually give them some crust, but they eat pretty good. They get their food and they get treats, so they get plenty. And then Saturday night they always get steak. So that's their big night. Even though they do like spaghetti, I don't know why. My dogs have been bothering me bad today. Sorry to hear that. But we're gonna kind of wrap up here. It's time for me to, yes, go out and do dinner, relax, enjoy the weekend, and try to fix the computer, because figure out what's going on with this. I was hoping you'd all get a sneak preview to anybody at the Rendezvous would see him. Trevor pulling in his Bronco, but he's not come home yet. But he has a big open space here, and his Bronco hasn't come home. So no preview of the Bronco yet. So that being said and done, thank you everybody. I'm sorry this kind of worked out. I think it always works out kind of good. This is the old school method. We'll fire it up and kind of put it out there. It's good just to talk with everybody and answer questions. I'm interesting. Well, anybody can be interesting. It's just, how would you put it? Certain knowledge base different than where you live and things you do than other people. So I always find everyone interesting, because I like to ask people, how did you get into this? How did you end up as a car salesman? What happened? Did you grow up here and stuff? Because there's always interesting stories with everybody. So there you go. Well, have a good weekend. Stress coping. My eye issues is stress related. Have a great weekend, Wayne. Thanks, Glenn and Nadine. No, they can't. I think people are interesting. It's what kind of like, yeah, well, Dutch hunters at least are always interesting. People I meet in the mountains and stuff are pretty interesting. Wish you had another show on History Channel. I don't know if I'd ever do another one on History Channel. I'd do an episode for something or jump into something, but other people are doing stuff and I don't envy them. I don't have that anymore. It's fun to do to some degree, but it's so watered down now, where we were doing 1.5 to 2 million people. Now these shows are doing 3, 4, 500,000 people. It's just not the same. It's just, I think the shows are getting worse. The audience is getting smaller. And your message is getting lost in it and all. So, you know, if you can't get something out in a message through it, then why do it? I think people get hooked into it. I don't mind doing it as like, it's a fun little brief vacation to jump into the chair and do something. I don't know if I'd want to put 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks into going on site and doing stuff. Now, Superstitions is different, but what are you going to do? You're not going to reboot or redo the same thing I did before. They always want me to do something different, and I'm not interested in that. I'll do something involved with the Superstitions for an episode, and that's about it. So I'm going to get out of here so I can grab things up. We did over an hour, and I remember now I realized we got a late start because of the other stuff. So I was trying to figure out why the time, 5:14, and why we're just 8 minutes over. What happened? And it's because I lost some time at the beginning. So there we go. If you ever visit, I'm gonna take lunch of silver coins and scatter them up there. Well, I don't mind. I'll go up there metal detect for them if you scatter them somewhere. Anyways, about being on the road with a rock band in the 80s. There you go. Those are always good times. Good times. Pooping in bags and flinging them out windows and all kinds of sleeping 5 to going in and out the window of a Best Western and all the good times. Good night, everybody. Have a good one. There, you get a little bit of that tree. Bird pooped and a tree grew. Imagine that. But, yes, nice cloudy sky. Someone's cooking a steak right now. So I'm going to have to go because I can smell someone's got a grill going. that makes me decide that I got to go do some sort of cooking or eating. All right. So everybody, thank you for coming in. Thank you for everything that everybody did and hanging with us here tonight. We will see you. Check out Chasing Legends on the channel on Monday. We're releasing that about 4 o'clock. Should be a really good story. Little different, but a good story for Monday. Till then, until the next time, have a great weekend. We will catch you later. And I'm Wayne Tuttle, and I'm out of here. And I don't know how to stop this stupid thing. There's got to be a stop button. I'm just going to hit this little X and say, that's going to make me go, bye-bye.